Good morning. Today is September 27th. We are almost through the book of Matthew. We have been reading daily at 9 a.m., Monday to Friday. I'm reading the New Living Translation if you are following along in your Bible. If you're not following along, that is okay, as long as you're making time to get the word in. But I do highly suggest that you do try to make time to sit down and actually read the words with your own eyes, because it's very different listening to the Bible than it is when you have it in your hands and you are reading it. So yesterday we ended at Matthew 24. Today, so normally we've been doing 2 chapters of Matthew a day. Today we're just going to do 1 because tomorrow, chapter 26 I feel like is a really heavy, and I feel like that should be all alone. So we're just going to do chapter 25, and then tomorrow we'll do chapter 26. So Matthew 25 verse 1. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 bridesmaids who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The 5 who were foolish didn't take enough olive oil for their lamps, but the other 5 were wise enough to take along extra oil. When the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight they were roused by the shout, "Look, the bridegroom is coming. Come out and meet him." All the bridesmaids got up and prepared their lamps. Then the 5 foolish ones asked the others, "Please give us some of your oil because our lamps are going out." But the others replied, "We don't have enough for all of us. Go to a shop and buy some for yourselves." But while they were gone to buy oil, the bridegroom came. Then those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was locked. Later, when the other 5 bridesmaids returned, they stood outside calling, "Lord, Lord, open the door for us." But he called back, "Believe me, I don't know you. So you too must keep watch, for you do not know the day or the hour of my return." Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. Then he left on his trip. The servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. After a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used his money. The servant to whom he entrusted 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, "Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more." The master was full of praise. "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." The servant who received the 2 bags of silver came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 2 more." The master said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling the small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." Then the servant with 1 bag of silver came and said, "Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here is your money back." But the master replied, "You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it." Then he ordered, "Take the money from the servant and give it to the one with the 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Now throw this useless servant into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." The final judgment. "But when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit upon his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will be separate from the people as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. Then the king will say to those on the right, 'Come, you who are blessed by the Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me.' Then these righteous ones will reply, 'Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you?' And the king will say, 'I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of these my brothers and sisters, you were doing it for me.' Then the king will turn to those on the left and say, 'Away with you, you cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. For I was hungry and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty and you didn't give me a drink. I was a stranger and you didn't invite me into your home. I was naked and you didn't clothe me. I was sick and in prison and you didn't visit me.' Then they will reply, 'Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison, and not help you?' And he will answer, 'I tell you the truth. When you refused to help the least of these my brothers and sisters, you were refusing to help me.' And they will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous will go into eternal life." And that's where we're ending today. Because like I said, Matthew chapter 26 is, I feel like, should be a chapter read all on its own. But I think this is also really important to note too. There's a lot in chapter 25 that we just read about the 3 servants and how he gave one 5 bags and one 2 bags, and then I believe the last one was 1 bag. Hang on, I just want to make sure I get it right. Yeah, so he gave one person 5 bags of silver, the next person 2 bags, and the last person 1 bag. God gives you specific gifts. God gives you specific, you could just call them gifts, whether it's a house, whether it's money, whether it's your voice to worship with, or to your voice to write a book with, or your ability to be a good administration assistant to someone. Whatever your gift is, God gives certain people certain gifts, and sometimes it looks like he gives somebody else way more gifts than he gives you, but he gives you what you can handle to see what you can do with it before he gives you more. And so to the person that he gave 5 bags, the guy turned around and invested it and was able to get 5 more. And so, like, that's like if you loan someone $100 and they turn around when it's time to pay you back, and you loan them $100 with the expectation that they would just give you what you loaned them back, but they turn around and give you more than what you gave them back. You're gonna be like, oh wow, I can bless this person even more next time because they're willing to go above and beyond. But God called the people who did invest good and faithful servants. They were good and faithful with the talent, with the gifts, with whatever it is that God gave them. He wants you to be a good and faithful servant. But to the person who did nothing with the little bit, with the one thing that God gave them, he called wicked and lazy. Don't be scared to open your mouth. Don't be scared to use the gift that God's given you, because he's waiting for you to use it so that he can bless you with even more. Because when he's able to bless you, you then turn around and do the work for his kingdom, and you're able to bless someone else who then can turn around and do something for someone else. So it's like a ripple effect. If you don't do your job with what the little bit that God gives you, it might seem like it's something simple, but you don't know how the little bit that he gives you will affect generations and generations and generations down the line. I just finished the book of Esther, and it's funny because in Esther chapter 4 verse 14 it says, you don't know if you were made for a time, if you were put in this position just for a moment like this. And I am paraphrasing it, so I'm just gonna go to Esther 4:14 really quickly so I get it right, because I was like, wow, that's really important. Hang on one second. Esther 4. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just such a time as this. Who knows if you were put here with that little voice that you got, or that little $5 extra that you got, or that ability to create a template on Canva, like whatever your ability is, who knows if you were put in this moment for a time like this. And because Esther spoke up when she was supposed to speak up, she saved hundreds, maybe even thousands of Jews. Like, she saved so many Jews. She could have kept her mouth shut. Nobody knew she was Jewish. She could have let everybody die. But because she spoke up and she realized that maybe I was put in a not normal way, she became queen. When there already was a queen, she randomly became queen. Nobody knew she was Jewish. She had the ability, she had the king's favor because she was his queen. So she had the ability to speak up when nobody else did. God gave her a voice, and she could have kept her voice silent. Instead, she opened her mouth, and she was able to be blessed even more. Her family was blessed. Her, I believe Mordecai was her uncle, was blessed and promoted up the line because she spoke up. Mordecai didn't speak up because Esther spoke up. He was promoted because Esther spoke up. Jews were saved. And so, again, God gives you little things to see what you'll do. Aim to be a good and faithful servant and not a wicked and lazy one. And we're going to end it there for today.